year, MasterCard released a report on the female entrepreneurs in the world, and Africa held the top 3 spots for having the highest concentration of women entrepreneurs in the world. Women make up over 70% of Africa's informal sector, and our potentials as drivers of the economic growth is staggering. But how do we take advantage of this economy? How do we amplify women, our ambitions, our potentials, and our contributions to the society? Well, we'll leave that to our female panelists to answer as we discuss ambition to action, amplifying Africa's female economy. On the panel, we have Ibtissam Azzaoui, who is a member of the City Council of Rabat, Morocco, a former member of the Moroccan Parliament and a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, civil society activist with a brilliant academic and professional career, an engineer with a PhD, researcher about Moroccan parliamentary diplomacy in Africa, passionate about being a voice for the people that are voiceless and developing a generation of young leaders that advocate and champion causes related to gender equality, youth, and sustainable development. Still on this panel is Gift Orairu, a publisher and editor-in-chief of the New Africa magazine, a personal developer, youth mentor, chairman, governing board of 316 Leadership and Management Academy, president and founder 316 Youth Network International, national secretary, Nigerian community in Bern, Germany, and a PRO European Glamour Women Association, a former president, Nigerian Fashion Designers Association. We also have on this panel Chisoma Lombe, who is a vice chairperson, Zambia Development Agency, a director on the board of Great and North Credit, founder of My Zambia, My Responsibility, a platform built to promote positive conversations and highlight local successes, president and creative designer of Chizo, a chartered accountant and a fellow with the Association of Chartered Certified Accountant, ACCA. And our moderator is Rahman, CEO, Africa, My Home, public policy and strategic communications expert, president of the International Center for Diplomacy, a digital media strategist and experienced project manager, a senior journalist and editor at the New Africa magazine. I now hand over to the moderator to take over from here. My moderator.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. It's always an honor to be part of the African Economic Congress to moderate this important panel on amplifying women's economy, participation in the economy, and especially that Africa today is still facing the consequences of the COVID-19. Before asking my first question to Mrs. Chisoma Lombe, which is the former vice chairperson of the Zambia Development Agency, I would like to start just with very, very few statistics. Let's say that women today perform 60% of the world work and also produce 50% of the food. But the problem is that they earn only 10% of the income and own only 1 to 2% of the property. Outside of the agriculture sector, which employ a vast majority of women in both developed and developing countries, women is still facing a lot of issues, more specifically that they get an average less than 78% of the wages compared to men for the same work. Now, with the situation of COVID-19, it impacted even more women, more specifically than in Africa. A great number of women work in the informal sector. Mrs. Chisoma, Lombe, you were vice chairperson of the Zambia Development Agency, and of course, you've been in the front line of the facing COVID-19, and you know that women were the most impacted. My question here: what is the role of women in the economy, and what are the effective mechanisms that should be put in place to ensure their full participation in Africa's development? And I would like to know whether this period of COVID-19 made you change your approaches of development so that you can mitigate the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 on the economy and more specifically on women.
Thank you very much. A great opportunity to be here. Greetings all the way from Lusaka, Zambia. Am I clear? Are you able to get me loudly?
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Okay. Yes, so yes, I have been in the forefront in terms of handling COVID in the country and the world, actually. Something that is quite new to us, and a lot of discoveries. I mean, we've been learning along the way. I think globally we've been learning along the way. But there are a lot of things that come out, especially in respect to women. I have always believed in gender equity rather than gender equality, because I have always respected a woman's role in society. And a woman's role in society has, though I've respected it, it's never been understood and equated at a level that it should be equated. We as women are definitely different species from men, and I'll explain it later. And as has been seen, even in the way the COVID pandemic has shown us. What came up, especially after the pandemic, was that women's jobs and livelihoods were more vulnerable because of the COVID pandemic. And that's because women naturally went into their natural role. They went into the natural role, a natural role that they play as women, which is to take care of the home, to take care of the family, to take care of the children. It is something that comes naturally. Unfortunately, that comes naturally for a woman is something that has been downplayed, but it's something that is a strength even in the economy. But we've misunderstood what a strength is and what a weakness is. The woman's strength has been domesticated, and yet it is a strength that can be used even in a corporate setting or a government setting, in a leadership role. We play a leadership role in a totally different way. So having said that, it is important to note that though these roles are played differently, they are no less important than a man's role, for instance. So I believe in gender equity, therefore, rather than gender equality. But as long as a woman's role is respected, and I'll give you a scenario. In a Zambian setting, for instance, when we have a funeral, we have a 3-day funeral, usually in Zambia. There's a role that men plays, that men play, and there's a role that women play. It's automatic. And this is bring out our strengths, for instance. So the women will be in the house wailing and cooking for everybody else. So in a Zambian setting, when there's a funeral, we all gather in one place. So the men are actually sleeping outside, the women are sleeping in the house. So whenever anybody comes to this funeral, the women are crying because they're the emotional being. The women are feeding everybody else. The men are outside, they're arranging for the coffin and all those things. One role is no greater than another role. So, and that's where we need to understand that though we are different, our strengths are there's no strength that is greater than another strength. That is where the equity part comes in.
I have a quick question to build on what you just said. In many countries in Africa, especially during COVID-19, they have developed programs to mismatch a kind of a strategy to balance women's professional and personal life, because there are new burdens and new responsibilities that arise during coronavirus. And I want to ask you, have you seen any other emerging priorities? What are the challenges that you have seen, especially on the ground? And what mechanism you used to overcome them?
Yeah, so in fact, even as the ZDA board, we were having a session and a lesson maybe a month ago. We had a very bad outbreak of COVID. And one of the things that was being discussed is this gender balance that has to be brought in terms of policies, because it's actually a cultural aspect for most of our African countries, even ours. And also it's to do with a regulatory environment, such as government legislation. There have to be policies that support women economic empowerment. It has to be deliberate. It has to be in the policies at every level of society, be it strategic. At the strategic level, there has to be a balance in terms of gender. And it doesn't have to be a balance to a point where an unqualified person is put there. But it has to be deliberate in the fact that there are so many qualified women. And I think the greatest thing is what I was trying to come to, where the way we are perceived is regarded as a weakness. So and that is a strength. I have started a lot of organizations that have succeeded, but in the processes of starting those organizations took women first to reach a certain stage, because the women were more thoughtful of how it will impact the very bottom. Mm-hmm. The men were not active until a point at which there was money coming in. That's when they now become active. That's when they now want to become a CEO or heading this organization. So it actually shows you the role that a woman brings in. A woman will be more deliberate in ensuring that the most underprivileged benefits. It's seen as a weakness, and yet that is the strength. That is the main.
Yes, I'll come back to you later. I just wanted to ask Mrs. Ibtissam Azzaoui, who is former member of the Moroccan Parliament, and actually she's elected member of the City Council of Rabat, because you mentioned, Mrs. Chisoma, the importance of a regulatory framework, and since Mrs. Ibtissam has been in the forefront of legislation. She has been during the exercise of the state budget, which is an important exercise. She's been at the forefront of the gender sensitive budgeting and other legislation that are impacting both men and women during coronavirus. So I wanted to ask you, Mrs. Ibtissam Azzaoui, what type of policies, whether in Morocco or elsewhere, you think are more effective to ensure full participation of women, either at the level of policy level or in terms of legislation? You've been at the forefront, so I want you to give us a concrete example of what are the measures that has been taken by the parliament or the government to ensure that women, that government are doing policies to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 and ensure or continue the policies of women empowerment.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the African Economic Congress for inviting me to take part in this important event. Women's economic empowerment is central and to realizing women's rights and gender equality. Empowering women in the economy and closing gender gaps in the world of work are key to achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 5, to achieve gender equality, Goal 8, to promote full and productive employment and decent work for all, Goal 1, ending poverty, Goal 2, on food security, and Goal 10, on reducing inequalities. When more women work, economies grow. To answer your question, I will talk about some key examples for effective policies that are gender sensitive. Clear legislative frameworks can guarantee a better economic empowerment for women. Regarding the finance law, for example, as you said, which is discussed each year at parliaments, we need to implement a gender-sensitive approach. Governments should set their own national targets and indicators for general equality promotion, and those targets and indicators must be clear in the sectoral strategies and policies. Social protection reform is also very important. Women are still less likely to have access to social protection. As a former member of the Moroccan parliament, I'm proud that we worked and voted the law of the generalization of social protection. This is a royal project that was announced by His Majesty King Mohammed VI. Through this project, during this year and next year, we will reach 22 million of additional beneficiaries of compulsory health insurance. Also, by 2025, we will realize the generalization of compensation of loss for loss of employment, which is very important. The education policies have also a major role to play in promoting the situation of women on the economic side. We also need to develop personal and life skills. We must not let women victims of stereotypes, saying that they are not good enough, they can't do it, it's only for men. No, we should stop those stereotypes and give women self-confidence to take challenges and to go forward. When women have the right skills and opportunities, they can help businesses and markets grow. Women who are economically empowered contribute to their family societies and national economies. It has been shown that women invest extra income in their children, providing a route to sustainable development. We still have gender inequalities in employment and the job quality. Women are constrained from achieving the highest leadership positions. Globally, women are also less paid than women. The gender wage gap is estimated to 23% at the international level. It's not fair. They do the same job, they have the same responsibilities, but they don't get equal salaries. We should work on national legislative frameworks to change that. So those were some ideas that I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
That leads me to my second question, because you are at the same time elected, just been elected at the municipality of Rabat, and you've been through several leadership positions, and you've been working also to empower women to participate in politics. And they say there is no real participation, political or civic participation, without women economic empowerment. Today, there are many programs that are linking women economic empowerment to their effective participation. And we know that local government plays a key role in local policies. In your opinion, how can we promote women's participation at the local level, especially that local governments have the responsibility to develop regional or local development programs and plans that includes economic empowerment for both men and women? How do we ensure that women have their voice heard in the decision-making process, from the development to the evaluation of the process?
Indeed, local governments play a very important role in promoting women active economic participation, either at the local level or at the also national level. Local governments, they assure, first of all, local services, so they are closer to people. And women must be represented at the level of these local institutions. In Morocco, we have at the level of the electoral law, it requires that at least to have 30% of women elected locally at the level of local governments. And for the first time in the history of Morocco, out of the 8 largest cities in Morocco, we have 3 women mayors, but there is still a long way to go. Municipalities must integrate the gender approach into their annual plans and programs. Local governments have the advantage of having a good comprehension and better knowledge of the local populations. They are focused on a very precise geographical perimeter. They can therefore better respond to local issues. In today's world, we need political actors, whether they are elected at the local level or the national level, who innovate to find solutions and who do not block on constraints like they may have not enough budget, or lack of human resources, or lack of logistical resources, etc. They should work on establishing partnerships with the private sector, with the civil society, with the academic world, with local media also. Through these partnerships, they can develop innovative financial mechanisms. They can encourage women economic empowerment. They can promote the public debate, which is very important. And they can encourage the social and economic actors who are in their territories, in their perimeter, to be actively involved in the development plans.
Yeah, thank you. That would lead me to ask Mrs. Nnamoko Orairu a very important question, because she is also an entrepreneur. She's been encouraging a lot of women entrepreneurs, and we know that Africa is the most entrepreneurial continent, especially female entrepreneurship. And Mrs. Gibbs, I wanted to ask you two complex questions. First of all, Mrs. Ibtissam talked about stereotypes about women, and you are a publisher and editor of the New Africa magazine, and you've been promoting Africa's talent, whether men and women, to change the narrative about women. So what role media can play in this regard, more specifically related to women's position in society, more specifically their full economic participation? And my second question, because you've been working a lot with female entrepreneurs, and with COVID-19, there are many priorities, many challenges ahead. A new ecosystem of entrepreneurship, we're facing a big digital transformation. What are the new approaches that women should adopt today to survive, whether the women who are leading small and medium enterprises or self-independent entrepreneurs in this regard, to mitigate the impact of the challenges of COVID-19? Mrs. Gibbs?
All right, thank you very much for having me. I'm joining you all the way from Germany. Okay, I will start with your first question. I think the media has played a negative role over the years when it comes to the showcasing what the women can do, or our capacity as women. Most times in the past, we hear when we hear women are good as wives and they're supposed to stay home to take care of the children, and then they create this image of women being the weaker vessel, that they can't do everything the man can do, and then this has over time made we young girls, as we are growing up, have this mindset that we are supposed to be having a certain kind of career, a certain kind of education. Everything we are limited in the aspect of pursuing the same kind of career the men our counterparts work on. So, but when we started the New African magazine, of course, it's a general magazine trying to sell the African image to the global market, because, of course, I live here in Germany, and then what people think about Africa is totally different from who we are. And then I've realized something: the more we speak about what the women can do, the more it creates that image, or redirect our image and our focus in believing more in ourselves. And because when women believe more in themselves, they can now see inwards on what their capacity can actually carry. Okay, so we have partnered with a lot of women organizations, and we try to exhibit them what they can do. A lot of women now are going into politics. It was not like that about 10, 15 years ago. A lot of women now can come in and do big business. It's not only selling akara by the roadside, which a lot of them think, or for an example, when I was very young, my mother told me I should be a school teacher, because when you're a school teacher, you can take care of the home, and you can have time for your job, because when the children are off school, you go home. So that was a mindset a lot of young girls started with. And it gave us a barricade. It blocked us from thinking far, as we should. But right now, awareness with the media, the present media, and what we are doing in the New Africa magazine, we are showcasing the ability of women, and we're telling them there are no boundaries. A woman can actually do what a man can do if given the same opportunity. So the African community should create more opportunities for these women, the right education, the right environment, and most especially the right information. Because one of the things I've realized over the time is strength and development is not about the amount. When you say women empowerment mustn't be when you give women financial support to start a business or a backup. Women empowerment should be the right information to the women, because when women are rightly informed, it builds them, it gives them that opportunity to think beyond or outside the box and create innovations that are never existed. So these are things we in the media should also pick up and do well. So for the second question, what the approach after the COVID? Now, we very much know that the COVID has come to stay, unfortunately, but that is true. Just this morning or yesterday, we had it in the news that we are going back to using the FFB marks, meaning we thought after this season and everybody is being immune or have the immunization, life will go back to normal. But we're looking at it; it's really not going to happen like that anytime soon. So now we women should adopt a new strategy of running business. Now this online thing, people thought it's been for young people that chatting online and all that. But right now, business in the next few years to come will strictly go online. IT, computers. We need to educate women on how to use this medium to do their business. You can be in your house and make a lot of sales. You can be in your house and communicate to the whole world, and everybody hears you. I believe 2 years ago, this conference was not done online, but today we are online because of the COVID. And so it's giving us a new understanding. I think one thing we need to understand as women is every negativity gives us a new opportunity. When things happen and if they're not really as we planned them, we should think beyond what is happening and see an opportunity we can embrace and build on it and work on it. So that's my...
I'll get back to you later on my final question. So I have one last question to each of the speakers, and I kindly ask our participants if they have complementary questions so that our speakers would answer them live. Please put them on the chat room. Let me get back to Mrs. Chisoma again here. I hear everything turns me to the issue of development. Today, many African countries are building their own version of development. In the past, we've been, inspired by international benchmarking. Sometimes we copy paste it, but today we realize that we need our own models of development. But here's the thing, is that isn't it time to work on our own versions of development, but at the same time work hard to change the mindset? Because having beautiful development strategies on paper without working hard on changing the mentalities, the stereotypes and the narratives, especially on gender issues, will not change. So what are your final thoughts on that?
I think in terms of back to our roots, it's a very important aspect. And for real, we have actually been copying and pasting. I've worked for NGOs. I've had an opportunity to work for international organizations, and I've looked at how we've evolved from the time there was an influx of international organizations, maybe 20 years back, maybe 30 years back. In the rural areas, there was so much food, and it was grown to actually feed even people in the urban areas. I'd have people travel, relatives travel, and they would bring sacks and sacks of food. But after the influx of so much capacity building, so much knowledge, so many international organizations in these rural areas, it's as if they are making us pack our knowledge, and then we're failing to actually own what is brought to us. And yet what we had before is something that we learned from practices in the past. So yes, indeed, we need to go back to the roots. Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Ibtissam Azzaoui, I want to ask you, what are the 2 to 3 key recommendations in terms of policy change that we really need today post-COVID-19 to include more women in the economy, ensure their full participation, and work on effective empowerment programs for this women?
Yeah, so in terms of the should be put to support women economic empowerment, I think some of the things that need to be looked at our education system, which should support girls more and encourage girls more, rather than the culture that promotes the young girls to actually get married early and choosing the boy over the girl in terms of who goes to school. So the policies have to change and support girls in terms of education, and also our culture plays a role. And on the corporate level and also the government level, there's need for access to management and job opportunities for women. So it has to be deliberate policy, which we also actually put, we've been working on, we had been working on in the last 2 or 3 months, changing the policies at the Zambia Development Agency to actually deliberately put it in the policy of the organization. So it has to be a deliberate policy.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Ibtissam Azzaoui, I want to ask you about the important policy changes also that we could do more specifically to empower women. And you mentioned something quite important, social protection, which is really key, because we know that we have a lot of women who lost their jobs, a lot of women who work in the informal sector without any social protection. So what are, in your opinion, the most important policies that any African government should do now to ensure women's full participation in the economy?
Indeed, we should have ambitious social protection policies to protect women and to give them the chance to participate actively in the economic development of the country. Also, we need to encourage women and to have clear policies to encourage women to access to finance so that they can start so that they can go to the entrepreneurial world and start businesses and be autonomous. We also need to work on the policies related to education, which is very important. We still have gaps that we have to work on, especially in the rural world. And with the COVID-19, we have seen that education, distance education had made lots of problems and has been a handicap for for the education of rural girls. So we need to make clear policies to empower women at the level of our societies.
Thank you. My last question is to Mrs. Gift. Mrs. Gift, I know that you also lead in a management and leadership academy, and you talk a lot about women's empowerment. So, and also Mrs. Ibtissam talked earlier about, empowering women, providing them with necessary skills and tools. So, what skills women leaders today need for their economic empowerment?
Okay, thank you very much. We know that education is the key, okay, because when people are not informationally empowered or empowered with the right information, they can hardly do anything new. Okay, so we thought of, instead of just making noise, like, let me not use the word noise per se, but as media house, we do a lot of talking and publishing and communications and all that. Instead of just doing the talking, let's do the acting. And that was when we created the idea of owning an international academy that is here to give the both graduate women and non-graduate women, whichever, the right information that will suit their capacity to empower them to channel into a new business or establish or do better in what they're already doing. Okay, because we figured most of our African women do business without even knowing what things as simple as bookkeeping is or marketing is. We just do it because we just go on the road, and whoever we can convince to sell our goods, that is just it. But I think it's time we start giving them the right information, the right empowerment, which is the mental empowerment, educational empowerment. And then that is where the academy comes in. 316 Leadership and Membership Academy, which were just created for this particular purpose, empowering women mentally, educationally, and most especially giving them the right tools to face the world and improve the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions from our participants. I have one. So question is, how can women galvanize to get more political leaders? So anyone of this, maybe Sam or anyone would want to answer this question.
Sorry, what was the question? How
the question is, how can women galvanize to get more political leaders?
Okay, I think that we have to work on the laws, on the electoral laws. Like here in Morocco, we have the law sets that we have kind of quota for women at parliament. I think that to help empowering women in economic and in all social sectors, we should have women in politics, and we should have women at the decision level in governments, in parliaments, and in local governments. I think that this is a very important step. So those women, those elected women, will have the responsibility to work on laws that are gender sensitive, and to help other women to access to better situation.
Thank you. I have one last question here. Probably I will ask Ms. Chisoma to answer this. You talked about violence against women and girls that increased in Africa, and more specifically during COVID-19. And we know that violence against women also impacts women participation in the economy. What can we do about this?
Please just repeat. I'm trying to look for the question, actually.
Can you hear me?
Please repeat the question.
Okay. The question was, violence against women and girls have increased in Africa, and more specifically in COVID-19, all across the world, especially domestic violence increased. And we know that violence impacts women's full participation in the economy. What can we do about this? Let's see, Mrs. Chisoma. since that probably she lost connection. Maybe Gift, you want to take this question?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah,
Sorry, I was trying to
the question is related to violence against women, and we know that violence increased in Africa, more specifically during COVID-19 and all across the world, and it has a direct impact on the economy. What can we do about this?
Okay, I think if the government of the African governments in different quotes should create more laws that protects women from violence. Because when we call violence, people think it's only when you hit a woman that you violate her. Okay, sometimes emotional violence can actually cause the woman more harm than even the physical violence that women encounter. So there should be laws that should protect women from being violated in any form. So I think when we can get the government to create policies. And then other things, women support women. Sometimes when women go to another woman to complain, I have been violated in one way or the other, they try to blame, the share blame thing comes up. And then this thing makes women, this situation make women, are afraid to open up to any other person, and so the issue of violence is actually a broad issue, but we can on our own find a way to create more awareness on what violence is really, because a lot of people are being violated without even knowing they are. So let's create policies, let's create awareness, let's create an environment that will discourage this from every source. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we are just on time, and let me just wrap up with a few important ideas. I think one of the most important things that we all agreed on is that we need to work on legislation that protects women, women's rights, and women's full participation in the economy. We need to ensure that we put policies in place, more specifically work on gender sensitive budgeting, because it's very important to have an gender mainstreaming all across the sectors, and we need to ensure that the budget that is being developed by the line ministries include women economic and socio-economic and political empowerment, whether at national or local level. There is another important thing is that the impact of COVID-19 has a very, very serious impact on women economic and socio-economic empowerment, and that needs very courageous legislations and policies. And we had one of the important things that mentioned about Morocco was the social protection, which is quite important that all African countries need to ensure that women have a full social protection, especially that we have a great number of women who are working in the informal sector without any protection. We talked about also stereotypes in the media, and we need to ensure we have public-private partnerships so that we can have programs that change the stereotypes in the narrative. And we agreed that we cannot have any legislation or any development program without working on changing mindset and the mentalities. And also we agreed that we need to start working on our version of model, or our model of development. And the last point for women economic empowerment is education and capacity building, which is quite important, that will promote women's self-esteem, women who believe in themselves, raise women's potential, provide them with leadership opportunities. These are, we cannot just talk about women economic empowerment as a sector. We have to see it from a holistic point of view. It's a whole package that needs the joint effort by different stakeholders in order to work on effective women policies and gender-related policies in this regard. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for all who've been watching us and for all your questions. Thank you for my wonderful guest, Ibtissam Azzaoui, member of the City Council of Rabat, Morocco, former member of the Moroccan Parliament. Mrs. Gibson Nnamoko Orairu is a publisher of the New Africa magazine, and also who is a chairperson of the governing board of the 316 Leadership and Management Academy. Also, Mrs. Chisoma Lombe, who is the former vice chairperson of Zambia Development Agency and director on the board of the Credit North Credit. Thank you so much, and then I hand it